Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Bubble. Today we have BigFan. He is the founder of the Rocket League Fantasy League. BigFan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So what got you started into fantasy, and what made you want to start one for Rocket League?
Yeah, so I guess I've been into Rocket League pretty much ever since the game came out. Just like I feel like the game is just unlike any other. Like coming from a sports background, I always played like sports video games, but then this one actually feels like a real sport. Like you could make like a huge impact on the game, and there's no like RNG about it. And so like I was already really into Rocket League, and then I went to school for computer programming and ended up getting a job as like a web developer. So I was making websites, and along with that, being into sports again, I was into like fantasy football. I'd play a little bit of like fantasy hockey, things like that. So kind of the everything was kind of already there for the site to happen. And actually, before my site, so fanrl.com is my site, but then before that, there was Rocket Garage, and that was another fantasy site. And I actually played on that, and I enjoyed it. And then the site actually had kind of two things going. You had the fantasy site, and then it was also like a trading website for like trading items and finding items, which is what they do right now. But in 2020, they decided that they were going to pretty much focus all their eggs into the item trading. So they actually stopped doing fantasy. And so at that point, I was like, well, I enjoy playing fantasy. I know how to make a website like this, so I might as well do it. So pretty much just put all of my skills to the test because I really had never made like a big web app like that before. So um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much how it got started. I pretty much just saw like a need for people that wanted to play fantasy and ended up making it. And the site's been running for a couple years now, and we're growing pretty steadily. And I don't know, I'm happy with where everything's at.
Awesome. So, quick side note: who is your favorite hockey team?
Well, I'm from Minnesota, so I got to say the Minnesota Wild.
I'm sorry, I'm a Boston Bruins fan. Uh,
That's fair. That's fair. As long as you didn't say the Blackhawks, I'm fine with Boston.
yeah, screw the Blackhawks. You know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that.
Although that, oh, what was it, 3 years ago, where we had that amazing best of seven series for the Stanley Cup?
Oh,
Like
yeah, yeah.
that was good series. I remember watching hockey when I was like, I think I was either 5 or 6 with just one of the games. So I'm from Southern Georgia originally, so there wasn't
Hmm.
much hockey on,
Right.
but I just remember watching this game and somebody forechecked this dude to the ice, and then all of a sudden two guys just like swarmed up and pushed the other guy into a glass, and then they didn't even hesitate. As soon as the other guy got knocked into the glass, the guy in yellow dropped his stick and dropped his gloves,
Oh,
and
yeah.
the
The
other,
gloves are coming
yeah,
off at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they just squared up, and I think they fought for like a good like 45, 60 seconds, and I just saw the ref circling around, and I was just like, wait, this is
Yeah.
legal?
Yeah. They're just letting
And
it happen. It's
and I was
amazing.
just like, all right, I don't know anything about hockey, but these yellow guys are my team. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
so
and
that's
and
how I
the
became a Boston Bruins fan.
I love it. And the Bruins are a great team because like they're nonstop fighting.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'm sure that's like right up your alley.
oh yeah. If Rocket Sledge and Woody were on a hockey team, it would definitely be the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
So is hockey where you kind of got your start in fantasy, or what sport kind of kicked you off?
Uh, Probably fantasy football. Just because my family all played, and so like we'd get all the cousins, all the uncles over, and we'd all do a draft. And pretty much I've been playing that since I was probably 8 years old.
Okay. So what is the drafting process, and like what does the league look like for Rocket League? Like how do you guys score points? What's kind of the ins and outs of it?
Yeah. So scoring is very similar to any other fantasy site, where it's basically you get points based on the players that you pick for your team, whatever their stats are for that week. Based on their stats, that's how many points you get. So the more goals, the more assists, the more saves, the more points you're going to get. Um, so I mean that's pretty much scoring. And then um, right now, when you're picking players, you have like a salary cap. Every player is going to cost a certain amount, and you can't go over like your salary cap. So like you can't pick like Monkey Moon, Seiko, Atomic, First Killer. Like you can't pick all the best players on your team. You have to kind of keep it within the salary range. And yeah, that's pretty much how picking players works. And actually, right now, what I just described was kind of the auction style draft, which up until now, that's been the only way you could play. And actually, in this off season, I'm currently working on a snake draft, which is similar to how the traditional kind of fantasy football is played. Sorry, American football. Um, and so where it'll be kind of in a league with X amount of friends, probably like 6 or 8 or 10 or something like that. And then you'll go around one by one picking a player for your team. So like you'll draft Monkey Moon, and then because I'm second pick, I won't be able to pick Monkey Moon because you just picked him. So like I would pick First Killer or something like that. And then so on and so forth until everyone fills up the roster. And then yeah, you pretty much just watch your players play, and then after each week you're able to like change out some of your players. So like you can pick up free agents. So like when Zen becomes 15 and he plays, hopefully in the spring split, then it's gonna be like a mad rush to try to get him for your team. So um, yeah, that's the big thing that I'm working on. I'm hoping that people enjoy that, and that's pretty much where fantasy's at this point.
So who is do you have like any stats on like who's like the most picked player for like round 1? Do you have any of those cool stats right there
So I
available?
do have most picked. And again, it is a little different because players have prices. So like even though a player might score the most points because his price is so high, might not pick him as much. But like I'll just say for Worlds, let's look at the pick percentage. So Yan, 35% of teams that played fantasy picked Yan for their team. Ahmad was 32%, Torment was 31%. And so again, it has a lot to do with pricing. And then, this time next year, I'll be able to say, well, in these leagues where it's a snake draft, I'll say first round, the most picked player for the very first pick is First Killer or Jory is or something like that.
Okay. So how do you go about deciding salary caps?
So it's a lot based on their past performances. So I'll just look at, okay, over the last 5 regionals, this person has averaged, let's just say 500 fantasy points. And then what I'll do is I'll compare, okay, their 500 fantasy points. How does that compare to everyone else's average? And then from there, I'll say, well, because he's 10% higher than everybody else, he should have 10% higher price.
Okay, so you're trying to keep it kind of even so it's competitive and not just who gets lucky and can pick the most players and
Right. And I think the hardest part is when there's roster changes because all of a sudden people are in new roles, so you don't know exactly how good they're going to be, or like are they all of a sudden going to jump up, or are they going to play more defensive and things like that. So yeah, when there's roster changes or new players coming in, it is pretty hard to price those players, and a lot of times some people can like really hit the jackpot if I price a player like very low, and all of a sudden they're just like unstoppable.
yeah. So how many players do you typically pick up for your squad? And then I'm guessing you only get to play 3 per week or
So right now I actually have it set to you can play 6 per week. When the snake draft feature comes out, it's going to move down to 4, but you'll have like 2 bench players, which is a little bit different. But at the same time, I think that's probably the one of the easiest ways of doing it. But yeah, right now you can pick 6 players for your team.
okay, and they just all play.
Yep, they all
Okay.
play, and you can create a league of like if you just want to play with North American players, you can make a league with just that, or if you want to do a combination of North America and Europe, then you can pick from both of those player pools. And then what I do is I basically make one fantasy round. So like the scoring will count for like regional one, let's just say. So like Europe regional one and North American regional one, that'll be one fantasy round.
Okay. And so that
Yeah.
way you can just change out players between rounds.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I do have all the regions as well, not just North America and Europe.
Okay. So this is something that anybody can do with their home region.
Right. Yep.
So what's kind of like your next few steps that you want to accomplish? Is this something that you eventually think Psionics will want to partner with you on?
I mean, that'd be great if they wanted to do that. I personally, that's not, I guess, one of my goals. I mean, if they reached out, I definitely would do that. Um, I guess I never really thought that they would do that because I guess it gets into like people associate it with gambling, obviously, because there is like money leagues, but my site is completely free. It doesn't cost you money to sign up and you're not betting anything. I guess my goal is to really make this like very popular within the community. And I do want to make it so it's enjoyable for everyone to play and that it's super easy. Which I think just over time I'll just kind of keep making new versions of the site and hopefully it'll just get easier and easier. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I just hope to do this full time because obviously working in esports would just be a very cool thing. I think a lot of people strive for that, and so if I could do that, that'd be amazing.
Do you currently have like cash prizes for like the main league, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so there's been some prizes in the past. This next season, I'm planning on putting up a bigger prize pool for what we call like the Global League, which is the league that it's the most popular league and it's the one that everyone's available to join. And it's I think last season we had about 1,500 people that were in that league, and so I've given out smaller prizes in the past, but I think we're to a point now where I do want to put up a little bit bigger prize pool for people. So I'm not exactly sure the dollar amount, but I do plan on doing some cash prizes for the kind of top three finishes for each split.
Okay. Who would be like if you were to partner with a company other than Psionics, obviously? Like who is like the top three you would want to partner with?
That's a good question. I guess I really haven't thought about that. I mean, like, there are fantasy sites out there already, like kind of some of the more popular ones for fantasy football is like DraftKings and FanDuel. And so I could see partnering up with them if they wanted to get into Rocket League. Other than that, I guess I don't really know. I could see, I guess, like a random org wanting to get into it because of kind of the popularity. And I think a lot of the people that are on my site are into the esports side of things, not just like, I think there's a good amount of people that just play Rocket League and don't really care about the RLCS or anything, the bubble scene or anything like that. So I think the users that I have on my site are kind of very targeted for a company like that. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I definitely would love to partner up with like an org or fantasy company already.
Yeah, I think I think if you partnered up with one of the leagues like in the bubble scene, I think that would be like a really cool partnership. Like I know Melon Patch League, they're coming out with their season 3.
Hmm.
They've got quite a few teams that have either made RLCS or made day 3, and all those teams that are kind of nipping at those heels. So I think that would be a fun partnership that maybe
Yeah.
you could explore.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I've thought about that. Yeah, that league, and then there's also minor league esports, which a few people have actually reached out to me that way, just asking if I can make some events for the MLE. But I think what's kind of nice right now is that a lot of the information I can pull from like Liquipedia or Octane GG, those are kind of the two sites that I'm pulling a lot of my data from. And so it's a little hard when you're talking kind of players that aren't listed on either one of those sites. That's kind of where the challenge comes in. I'm not saying it's impossible because as long as you go through ball chasing, so I don't know if you're familiar with ball chasing, the kind
Very
of
familiar with it.
right. Yeah, as a coach, I'm sure you are. So yeah, and that's another website that I can use to pull stats. So I'm definitely capable of programming that. It's just a matter of like, how much time do I have development wise and like, do I focus on the snake draft or do I focus on some of these more minor leagues outside of the RLCS? And so I think down the line, I do want to do that. And I think there's some possibilities for some fun stuff there. So I think that's something I definitely want to do in the future.
Nice. So who is like the biggest creator that plays the league, if you can leak that?
Oh, Hootie Who probably. He streams all the time and he's gained a huge following. And when we're in the middle of the RLCS season, he streams every Thursday and actually picks his team live. And I know for a fact like a bunch of people from his stream have come over. He actually created his own like private league. So all of his like followers joined that, and I think he gave out a cash prize for that as well. So yeah, he's been huge in helping the growth of like the site. There's a bunch of there's a bunch of them, but he's probably the biggest one if I had to guess.
Shout out to my fellow Arkansan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, meeting him at the V1 show was pretty cool. I think him and a Top Gun, I think, are the only other two people that live in Arkansas that are content creators when it comes to Rocket League.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he's a cool dude. And wait, which V1 party were you at?
so I was running sound for the V1 kickoff show. I don't know if you got to go to that or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I missed that, but I heard about that.
Oh yeah, it was fun watching Rizzo crowd surf, and then also
Yeah.
Jordan is. If you've never seen him perform, he is somebody that he has been born to be a performer. Pretty sure he's putting out some videos of that show soon, or they'll probably be out by the time this podcast is out. But definitely go check out City of Sound and those shows.
Yeah, definitely.
He's
So funny enough, I've actually gone to all the lands this year. So I was at the Winter, Spring, and Worlds. And I interviewed Regis J at the, let's see, Spring Major in London, and I was interviewing him, and I think at that point it wasn't like official that he was going to perform at Worlds, but he was saying how it'd be cool if his band got to perform at Worlds, like it'd just be crazy. And then all of a sudden, a couple months later or whatever, he's actually performing there with V1, so that was cool.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun experience getting to meet everybody and just hang out with a bunch of Rocket League creators listening to good music.
Is it crazy, like just walking around and like I feel like, whether it was at the event or like kind of at like a Version 1 meetup, something like that, just the amount of people that you're like, oh, that's a player, that's a content creator. It seems like there's just so many people that I recognize that are like, in the scene and are always putting out content or doing things within the scene. So I think that's just like so cool that the community is like so kind of tight that way and everyone can kind of like recognize each other. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think when you have a game that's as grindy as Rocket League, grinding out content is actually almost as easy,
Hmm.
just because
Yeah.
you're constantly doing stuff and you're used to just putting in those hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Who's other than Hootie who's some of your favorite content creators?
I do watch a few Lawler videos every once in a while. He's always talking about the esports side of things. I mean, I don't necessarily watch the like pro players stream, even though they are kind of like fun to watch sometimes. I do mostly focus on like the esports side and like the people that are just talking about specifically like, roster moves and kind of all the drama that's going on within the esport itself. I mean, I do like Chief Beef. He's a good one, even though he's not necessarily on the esports side of things. I think he's pretty entertaining to watch. He's also like wicked at the game.
Yeah, I think he probably has one of the most interesting personalities or like most unique personalities. Like I
Yeah.
feel like there's kind of like this standard pro attitude about things,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
he definitely doesn't have that standardization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's got the
So
good like combination of like a good personality and also like, SSL top 100 in the game. So
yeah, the fact that he can shoutcast his games as he's playing them is that's a skill that people don't understand how impressive that is.
yeah,
Like to be able to
extremely
interact with
difficult.
chat like while you're flip resetting on somebody.
Yeah,
It's like
insane.
it's like that's some muscle memory there where in mid flip reset you're like, okay, cool, I got the first one, so now I can take 2 seconds to look at chat while I finish out this shot.
Yeah, and I think right now he's actually doing an uncapped subathon. Let me see. He's been live for 115 hours at this point, and he's still got another 60 hours to go at least.
Yeah.
He's grinding right now.
Yep. Definitely go check out his stream. He's fun to watch. We're both fans.
Yeah. Yep. Big
So,
fan.
so who is your team? I'm guessing by your shirt I can figure it out, but who's your team?
Well, yeah, I got a little bit of Minnesota pride, so I gotta say version one. But I don't know. I mean, I really don't, I guess I don't really have a for sure favorite. I do like the underdogs, like the teams that just have a chance at making it, and they've shown glimpses of like either that they can make top 8 or top 4 or anything like that. So I like those type of teams. I don't know. Probably another one is Team Liquid. They're just so young, so talented. Like it's insane. Their average age is like less than 16. So
Yeah, it's
probably Liquid right now.
yeah, that roster is going to be insane when they finally gel together.
Yeah.
But when you have that many mechanical players that can solo play, like you gotta figure out how to hold back a little bit as one of the players and just kind of to give your other teammates space. So I
Right.
think once they figure that out, they're going to be a very dangerous team.
Yeah, and just watching a few of their games, yeah, their over aggression by them is definitely like their weak point. But like you said, yeah, once they figure that out, they're already so dangerous, but they're gonna be scary good, in another like year or two if they stick together.
Yeah, that or if they find a more defensive minded third, like somebody like Torment, like
Hmm.
not, I think one of them can develop into that play style or at least take aspects of that play style and all of them implement it. But I just think with them, like they're so focused on go, go, go. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Is it a chronic? A chronic's their third for the most part, right?
I believe so.
Right. But yeah, I mean,
But even him, he can be aggressive too. And so
oh
I
yeah,
think they
very
just need
aggressive.
to they just need to fine tune a few things and figure out how to transition onto defense more consistently, or at least give themselves the option to transition onto defense. And I
Right.
think at that point they'll be a very hard team to beat.
Yeah.
My favorite team outside of version 1 is definitely Furia.
Oh yeah.
So I've been saying since they took top 6 at the LAN in LA that they could win worlds. And
Hmm.
honestly, if BDS didn't decide to finally show up, they had that. There was no chance Furia wasn't winning.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, Yan already is so crazy, but then like Card was absolutely popping off. Kyle was playing like crazy. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like once they got their defense sorted out from the London LAN, they became a much scarier team because they only lost to K Corp, and that's only if you go back and watch those games, they very much just stopped playing any defense whatsoever.
Yeah.
When they just needed to keep the foot on the gas a little bit longer.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. They're,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are saying Yan's the best player in the world. I don't know if I agree with that. He's definitely top three, but who would you say is the best player in the world?
Ooh, that's hard to say. Honestly, as an individual, I would say O'Khaled.
Oh yeah.
If you go back and watch the London LAN, if you
Hmm.
watch the way he just destroyed SSG with controlling those 50s for those first 3 games, just watching SSG go, okay, we're just going to let him dunk us now so that way he doesn't use us to pass to a teammate.
Yeah.
It's
It's crazy.
like,
That was probably one of the most dominant runs from Falcons. They just looked actually like they just couldn't lose a 50. They were just so much faster. They just like looked unbeatable.
yeah, I think they definitely have the most potential out of any team to win Worlds next year. I think they got a little bit shook after losing to Furia
Hmm.
at the Saudi LAN, and they didn't play with the confidence it seemed like they were used to having at Worlds.
Right. Yep, I totally agree.
But also losing to Furia is not how well they play now. Like that's not a team that you should necessarily be sad to losing to.
Oh my God, no, yeah, I mean, that team's definitely a top four team, if I had to guess. I mean, there's so many good teams, but they're just so
Yeah.
good, and especially if like Kaio and Carter on, it's like so hard to beat them.
Yeah, so I was standing during the game 7. I was kind of standing out like in the wing just a little bit because I
Hmm.
couldn't sit in a seat for that game, and or for that entire series, honestly. And when who was it, Card or was it when Jan scored that goal to tie it up?
Yeah.
Like
Oh my.
I screamed so loud that I jump scared the first 2 row or the back 2 rows.
That was the loudest moment. I
Oh yeah,
mean, just I w- the thing is the Justin goal will never be beat, but that was a
that
close
was
second.
close. Yeah,
Yeah, that was
if they
ridiculous.
if they had finished out the run and gotten past BDS,
Hmm.
then I think that moment right there would have been like the moment
Yeah,
of that entire LAN.
that was crazy.
Yeah, everybody I talked to afterwards was just like, "Well, I feel like the rest of the tournament's a formality at this point."
Oh
Just
yeah.
like that was just the consensus. If you were there, you know that feeling. If you weren't, you need to show up next time and get that feeling.
Yeah, I remember I was getting like a little tired because they were playing so many games that day.
Mhm.
And then that happened, and I literally like the adrenaline shot in me, and then it was like I just drank like 3 cups of coffee.
Oh yeah. What's your prediction for this next year? Who do you think's going to be some of the top players?
Some of the
So
top
obviously
players.
Monkey Moon, all of Furia. You
hmm
know, other than like the obvious choices like the Moist, the Liquid roster.
Um, well, I've been saying this, so I've actually do power rankings every once in a while, and I've put CRR in my top 20 for the last like I think after spring and after Worlds, I put him in my top 20, and I think a lot of people were like the three other people I was doing it with on the podcast I do. Everyone was just kind of like, wait, what? Like, why do you have CRR there? Like, they didn't even have him in their top 25. And I really like CRR. I think he's like extremely underrated. I don't know what team he's going to right now. I think the rumor is that he's going to go to Complexity. But either I don't care where he goes. I think CRR is going to like pop off. He's nasty.
Yeah, I think him and Razir, I think are going to be the two that
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be the team that, or they're going to be the player that puts a team consistent top 8, if not consistent top 4, whoever picks them up. I think after this roster mania, who they're going to be the free agents everybody's looking after because they can. Razir's proved himself at the Gamers 8 that he can play whatever positions needed because
Yeah.
he played all of them and he
Yeah, he
played
was
all of them well.
ridiculous.
So it was just that's the thing that impressed me most about him was most people are extremely good at playing one role. Like Torment is extremely good at playing defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yep.
an excellent third man, a very good second man, and he has enough shooting that he can strike, but he doesn't have the beast mode mechanics.
Right. Yep. I,
Razier's it feels like Torment if he has beast mode's mechanics.
yeah, ridiculous.
And so just his ability to adapt to what's needed, I think that's going to be one of the biggest factors for him.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's such like a dangerous player to have is that kind of mechanical defensive player. Like you look at, yeah, like a Monkey Moon, Vatira, Daniel, like all three of those players are just considered to be, probably top. All three of those players are probably top five in the world, and they all are super mechanical, defensive third man, like ridiculous.
Yeah. So what is your big plans for this coming season? What type of season do you think we'll have?
I'm hoping I mean I love roster changes. I hope we get as many as possible. I think the esport itself is only going to get bigger and bigger, and I think they're going to do hopefully more things when Unreal Engine 5 comes out to like enhance the viewership and hopefully get people more involved. So, I mean, I'm excited for this season no matter what. I'm hoping Unreal Engine 5 changes some things up and that like you know, people are complaining, I think, right now about why don't we have this? Why don't we have this when other esports have it? But I'm just hoping that they're putting all their eggs in the Unreal Engine 5 basket right now, and that, when that comes out, all of a sudden we're going to see a bunch of new features, a bunch of new, all the things that people have been asking about for the last couple of years. I hope they start actually making that. So that's probably the thing I'm most excited about. And then obviously, yeah, the roster moves that are coming. So I'm pumped.
Yeah. So what was your favorite format to watch as a fantasy player? Like, did you like the Swiss style more? Did you like double elim?
Um, yeah, I mean, I thought Swiss is definitely the most fair, just in terms of like you're getting matched up with teams that have won or lost the same amount of games as you. Double elim, I think, is chaos, so like that was maybe more entertaining because you could like randomly lose. If you randomly had like a bad game, all of a sudden you were facing another team that like should have won and lost, so you had like NRG and SSG in like the bottom like so one of those teams is going to get eliminated right now. So um, double Elam was probably the most entertaining, but Swiss is the most fair. So
Yeah.
I'll take either one of those.
I honestly would love to see a league format for the splits. Like expand the amount of teams in it and then have like 4 different divisions each week and then just depending on who won and lost like swap the divisions out. or swap
Yeah,
the teams to the different divisions and have them play like basically just like a massive 8-man Swiss.
right.
Or uh, I think that would be really fun to watch and really good for building storylines. And then
Yeah.
just take the top 16 and put them in the like regional tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a big promoter of league play. It sounds like all the people at Psionics are like that's not going to happen anytime soon. So, I'm a little sad about that, but I do hope that eventually it comes back around because I do think, yeah, then rivalries are born, like not only born, but like cemented in, and then you know that you're gonna play them X amount of times per season, and um, also like for orgs, it's easier to organize things like a watch party when you know exactly when you're gonna play, who you're gonna play. Whereas like right now, I know being in Minnesota, Version One is always throwing all these watch parties, but at the same time, I talk to the people that are running it, and they're just like, yeah, it's kind of hard to run these because we don't even know if we're going to play on Sunday or not, because of how everything works. So, do we pay to rent a space knowing that we might not even play? Or like, I think with league play, I think that kind of eliminates some of that struggle. So I think there's benefit of that. But again, I don't, if they don't change it, whatever. I mean, I'm happy with kind of the excitement that comes with all these new teams that are able to make it every single regional, and the roster changes and things like that. So I'm happy either way, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing just for the league play is if you had like a league per split versus like the system we have now, it would be a lot easier for orgs to invest in teams that aren't top 8 or top 12.
Right.
Because then it's, hey, we've made RLCS for this split. We're going to give you a month and a half of promotion.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's a much easier sell to orgs and a much bigger benefit to orgs to pick up a team. Uh, and then if they make top 16, they make it to finals and they get to play the big show. And
Yeah.
if they don't, the org can, make that decision after the split's over, but they've still benefited from it. And so I think that will just help elevate the scene and get more orgs involved.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you do see a a good amount of like the bubble orgs having to like drop their team after like a season because they're like, well, we didn't qualify for three of the regionals, and so yada yada. Like yeah, that totally makes sense. And again, I think the orgs can benefit a lot from the league play.
Yeah, I just think that's, even if it's not necessarily RLCS, I think having some sort of official league uh, as like maybe the qualifiers
Hmm.
instead of just like a tournament on the weekend. Uh, I love
Right.
tournaments, but I think at least right now there's a lot of poor seeding that goes on, and that's hard to hard to deal with.
Right.
The teams that are getting through shouldn't necessarily get through, and then there's a lot of teams that are facing each other day one that shouldn't be facing each other till at least day 2, if not day 3.
Right. And that was probably the biggest frustration with the group stage format was you have like, okay, how is this seating made? Because yeah, this just isn't fair. So
Yeah, like especially for the qualifiers. If you go back and listen to if you talk to any bubble player, uh, they'll tell you about the time they had a death bracket with 4 rank X teams in it, and then they're mad at this one rank B team, that they didn't have a rank B plus team in their entire day 1 bracket. Uh,
oh yeah.
and so it's like, well, that I think that's the biggest issue in the bubble scene that needs to be solved. But
Yeah.
I say that every podcast, hoping that it gets changed. But
Right. Eventually it's gotta click.
yeah, eventually. But I think league play would benefit, would be an easier way to do that, or at least have some sort of league to help with seeding. Uh, like maybe
Yeah.
give some teams like a guaranteed gay 2 if they do well in the seating, and then that way, uh, like you have the people that already guaranteed day three. Why not have something set up to where you could guarantee some people day two?
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah,
just makes
exactly.
sense. Uh, so, what would you do differently if there was a league format?
In terms of the fantasy site,
Yeah, like how would you change up if there was a league?
um, actually, on my side, I wouldn't really have to change much. Luckily, kind of like when I made the site, I was knowing that Psionics was going to kind of change up the format a few times. Like, we don't, I guess, necessarily know what the format for next season is going to be. So, I mean, I made it knowing, with that in mind. So, if they did change to league format, it would be a super simple fix for me.
Okay, that's cool. What would you? I'm trying to think. What would you pick for the format? Like if Science called you up right now and said, "Hey, uh, we heard that you're this insanely smart person, and you're now going to
Yeah.
decide the fate of
What is this?
RLCS and how is
Is
it?"
a dream or come on, this ain't happening.
Yeah,
But
but yeah,
if they
if this happened,
right.
what would you say? You guys need to do X, Y, and Z. What format would you pick? How many teams would you allow to play in RLCS? How would you run the qualifiers?
I mean, without thinking about it too much, um, I do like how kind of like the Premier League is set up, where it's well, just that whole format of like you have kind of lower divisions that teams can move down to, like lower leagues. So like there's, let's just say 16 teams in the Premier League, like the RLCS, and then sort of how there used to be like the RLRS. Like you could do it that way where it goes from you can get promoted or demoted after every single season or kind of like split type thing. So then you have um, the top teams, the ones that are performing the highest, always going up, and the bottom teams getting moved down. But then I would also add more than just like the RLRS. Like I would have, you know, 5 different leagues. So then, people can start at the very bottom, and if they just keep winning, um, they can go all the way to the RLCS. And I don't know. I just think that's a fun way of doing it, and it kind of makes sense with how Rocket League really is just like soccer with cars. So you know, might as well go based off of like the most popular league, in the world. So that's probably what I would do without thinking about it.
Yeah, so basically, don't reinvent the wheel. Just take something that's already evolved over 100 years and just adapt that to esports.
Yeah. And I mean, I think what they're doing now, I think it's fun. I think trying out new formats and like switching up how it is formatted every single split is like kind of entertaining and like it benefits some teams and hurts other teams, but I think that's part of the fun of it. But at the same time, I think the league format in the long run, I think will be the way to go.
Yeah, I'm biased towards league just because it makes coaches more important.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Not
like
to. One thing I would add too. Let's get a draft going. Like in fantasy, in a football, how like before the season they draft like all the rookies for teams.
mhm. I think that
If there was franchises, I think that would be pretty wild. And then there was a draft.
yeah, I think that would be really cool. Like I don't know if you watch the Off the Post podcast.
I have I've tuned in for maybe just like a small amount, but
They
yeah,
were talking
I've
about
seen that.
franchising, actually about it yesterday or 2 days ago from when we were recording this about franchising, uh, and just like how complex of a system that actually is,
Right.
and just how hard it is to do right. Uh,
Well, yeah, and I think too with franchising, at that point you can have more lands because like, okay, this is the Minnesota franchise, and so we're gonna have an arena, and then then you can have, which I think, again, I'm sure they brought this up, but because of how young the players are right now in Rocket League, you know, it would be awesome to have more lands, but I get it because, what are the 15-year-olds going to travel every single weekend? Like that's just not possible when they have school and all that. So I think once the player age of Rocket League goes up, the average age, I think we could see a shift to like a franchise or something because lands are just so much fun. It's just great for the fans, and like I think that's a big step for the esport.
Yeah, I just hope they're very patient on franchising and make sure everything's uh, they have all their ducks in a row first, because that's something that could quite literally either make this the biggest esport that's ever existed or stunt its growth, if not completely destroy the esport.
Right. Yep. No, I agree with that.
The one thing I do love about Rocket League is it is entirely a meritocracy to a certain extent. You know, the best
Yeah.
teams are going to make it through 90% of the time. Uh, you know, you're never going to eliminate all all of luck, but
Right.
Rocket League definitely has the closest.
Yeah. No, and it is cool that like just three people could who've never like even tried to make an RLCS team, all of a sudden they just form one and all of a sudden they can come in and just like make a regional and all of a sudden they're getting picked up by an org. So I mean that part of it is like really cool and just how much people can progress just by forming a team.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be probably the funnest thing looking forward to right now is seeing what format they do. I'm really hoping for some bubble scene support. That's my big goal, because I think there's a lot that they could be doing with it that
Hmm.
they don't realize it. But also, uh, they're already doing quite a lot. So I don't want to diminish what they have done.
Right. Yeah, and what do you think? Do you think they're gonna keep the same tournament formats, or do you think they're gonna kind of introduce a new one next season? Are we
I
gonna get all
think
three new, or what do you think?
I think they used this year as a test run to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Hmm.
And so I definitely think the Swiss is going to be a massive part of next season. Uh, just because of how much the orgs liked it for like seeding purposes. It let the best teams through consistently. Like one upset didn't completely throw the bracket into chaos.
Right.
Uh, as fun as that is to watch. Uh, but
Yeah. Right.
I think definitely they'll probably go Swiss. If not, I'd be surprised if they don't go that. I think they'll introduce round robin in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wait. So you think that they could just do like all three splits are Swiss?
I don't think it'll be entirely. I think they're still going to be at the very least a single elim tourney for top eight. I think that's the big thing that they realized was a great idea. Because for
Mm,
Worlds, like Sunday, if it wasn't so long, like they had so many good matches. Uh,
yeah.
I think that's going to be like how they finish out everything now. I think they learned that double elim is a little bit too confusing for the average person to understand, especially with bracket resets. Uh,
Right.
I don't know if you saw the tweet of Sunless Khan, like after the bracket reset at the London LAN, where he went to go grab a beer and they had already closed because they didn't know what a bracket reset was.
Oh, yeah.
So I think just to get the average viewer involved, I think they're definitely going to simplify the finals to single elim.
Right.
But I think
And
Swiss is definitely here to stay in some way.
yeah. And really, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that Rocket League as an esport has right now is getting people to understand, you know, I think you could even like a new person could watch like the video that they have explaining like splits and like, well, there's a season, but like that, like, I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we're facing. So if we can somehow simplify that, I think that'll be huge.
Yeah, and I think that's why they threw everything at the wall this year. It's just like, this is our year. We go crazy and try everything,
Hmm.
so we can figure out what works, and then we can just like, okay, this is going to be our format moving forward.
Right.
Uh, and I think probably this season's going to have a little bit of experimentation, and then I think the 23 to 24 season, I think that's what Rocket League is going to look like for a very long time, at least at the pro level.
Right. I hope so. I hope we. I mean, again, I think changing things up and trying out new stuff is good, but I think consistency will help out the casual viewer a lot more.
Yeah, that, and it'll also just help out players because then they can just kind of get used to something, and it's not uh, so hectic trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here and what do we need to be aware of, and
Right.
is this best
Exactly.
of 5 or is this best of 7? You know,
Yeah. Right. And like, oh, I thought we were playing tomorrow, but no, we actually play right now. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
yeah. I just think that adding that consistency and simplifying it's going to be huge, and I think that's what they overcomplicated this season. I think on purpose, just to experiment.
Right. And I think that was something that, like, along with people not understanding it for just watching the RLCS, like on the fantasy side of things, you know, I think it confused a lot of people too, because I was saying, like, well, so there's these three regionals in a split, but also if you're in a league with North America and Europe, technically regional one is one fantasy round. So, like, people would sometimes think, like, okay, I picked all my North American players and like if they're in a league with North America and Europe, so they pick a team that's full North America, and then next weekend they're like, wait, why can't I pick my European players? And it's like, well, no, you have to pick from both player pools, and that's just one fantasy round. So see, like that right there, I think it's just even confusing on my side of things, and like whatever we adapted to it, but at the same time, it's like that confusion translates to our side of things as well.
Yeah. Either way, I think we're definitely looking forward to this season. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you have anything
Definitely.
you want to close out this podcast with? Obviously where people can find you at, how they can get involved.
Yeah, so the fantasy site is fanrl.com. Yeah, and we're in the middle of transitioning to kind of the snake draft feature. So I'm hoping with that people will enjoy that, and you can get a league with a group of your friends, and then all have a draft, and it'll just be a fun night, fun experience, and then watch the games throughout the year. I do have some other socials. Most of that's at Big Fan RL, but yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, One question for you now.
Ooh.
I'm gonna flip the script on you. Um, who do you think? Well, all right. What do you think of Reddles and AJ? Do you think they're gonna team up? And if they do team up, who do you think will be the third?
Honestly, I don't think they will. I think Reddles has not necessarily better teams, but teams that have a better fit for him than FaZe does.
Like, do you have somebody in mind?
Hmm. Honestly, I could see him going to either Ghost, because I think the only thing holding Ghost back is having that second man player that Reddles fills so well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh, so I think even though that might be a quote unquote step down, I think he would bring them up quite a bit. And I don't think that there's any other teams at the very top, at least in North America, that are going to give up what they have
Yeah.
uh, for Reddles.
Right. I agree. But yeah, he can definitely help out a lot of teams, and I think he could potentially bring a team that's, top 8 or top 10 and bring them into that top 5 potentially.
Yeah, so I think that's where he's going to end up going, uh, unless Cloud9 sends him that offer they've sent every good player.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
but even then, that's a question on if he would even do that.
Yeah. No, totally.
Because who would he be able to recruit to Cloud9? Even with the bigger paychecks, it's
Right.
like that's a tough one. I think if one of NRG's players retires, I think he would end up filling that slot too. I think that's the two options. I
Oh,
think
okay.
either
Yep.
I think Ghost, just because they have the legacy within Rocket League. I think he could end up going down there and bringing them up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, And then if somebody from NRG retires, I wouldn't be surprised if he got picked up for that. Just because all those players can play all three positions, and having a great second man like Reynolds can be, uh,
Yeah.
I think that will allow Justin and Squishy to play their aggro like they like to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Or if you know, Squishy's still, or if Squishy retires, like Garrett's got that third man mentality, and Reynolds can wreak havoc with Justin. So I think like if any of them end up leaving, he can fit into whatever scheme that they have rolling. Just because they're all very complete players,
Yeah.
uh, they just needed to get some chemistry and kind of adapt to people countering them. And
Right. And bringing in a new face, I think that changes org, like just mentality a lot. So yeah, that
yeah,
could be huge.
yeah.
All right, one more question for you actually
Ooh,
while I
let's do
got
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, one of the biggest challenges is when there's kind of new players that come onto the scene, and I don't know
Mhm.
exactly how to price them. So is there any bubble players that you have like taken note of that are like very very highly skilled, that could potentially make the RLCS for this next season?
Well, obviously, all of my team.
Of course, yeah, of course, that was a
Yeah, yeah,
given.
yeah. Gator, Trent, and I can't reveal who our third is yet.
Ooh, okay,
But
okay,
we've got some good ones. Uh, I think probably Wonder Mike, I think, is definitely the. I think he's technically rank B, but that's just because he hates playing six mans in rank B. But he's definitely one of the most sought after players in the bubble scene.
okay,
Uh, and then Daru, if he keeps up his grind, I think he's been top 16 before, back in the early days. Uh, and his team's doing really well. I think those two are the ones to look out for,
okay.
outside of obviously the gentleman roster. Uh, so
Gotcha. All
so
right. Well, I'll keep an eye on those two, and
yeah.
as well as your whole team, of course.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll be making main event this year.
I'm ready for it.
So I'm excited. It's we put in a lot of work, put in a lot of study this year, and we finally got things clicking towards the end of the year. And so now it's just getting that consistency with it. So
Right. And that's huge.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and especially if you can just have everybody on the same page, I think you know, consistency is something that a lot of people struggle with, but if everyone's on the same page, I mean,
that
teams can get
makes
dangerous.
yeah. I think that's the biggest thing that I was proud of this year is when we were clicking, we were unstoppable, and it didn't matter what team was in front of us. If they were rank X, if they were rank A, uh, I mean, the only teams that we really didn't get to play are the top 16. But
Yeah.
out of the ones that we played that were those higher ranks, as long as we were on that day, uh, if we didn't beat them, we took them to game 7 or game 5.
Yeah.
And every
That's
game was
that's
close.
cool.
So, uh,
Well, I'm ready for it.
yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited for this next season.
I am too. Well, hey, thanks for coming on here. Everybody go check out Big Fan. And if you're into fantasy Rocket League or want to get into it and just check and see what it's about, check out fanrl.com. Links will be in the description. You guys have a good day.